way here. We don't want to embarrass him too bad there. We'll be looking at his nose hair. You know what I'm saying, Tim? So
he's got nose hair all over his face, man. The beard just keeps coming, right?
Too old for this is Jacob working the angles. So I love it. All right, man. So let's move along to a little Savion Williams talk. This article is a little long-winded. I'm going to pause in between, Tim, and get your take as we go through here. But this was a fun little put together, man. I threw this all together because with Christian Watson being out until November, right? Oh Lord, he thought he was.
I took it off.
He thought he was
with the one-liner of the night for sure.
Always, man, always. So Savion Williams, right? Everybody's calling him the next Deebo Samuel. That was the big scouting comp. Tim, you remember when we first drafted him? It was all over the interwebs. This is going to be Deebo Samuel, right? I put in this article, and I kind of took a little bit different approach. I said Savion Williams, the next Deebo Samuel, or Christian Watson bridge. Listen, there are a lot of similarities between Savion Williams and a young Deebo Samuel. There's no two ways about it.
But we're not talking about direct player-to-player comp, though, right? We're talking about the style of play, right? We're not saying he's Deebo. We're saying he's that type of dude, right?
Similar traits, I would think.
Yeah, similar traits. There you go.
He runs with power. He can catch the football. It's not his strength. It's more that ball in his hands is where he does the most damage in terms of that. But
let's dive in. Catch. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Let's dive into it here. Again, I'm going to try to pause in between because it is a little wordy, but I think there's some really good information in here. Just doing a deep dive. I went back and watched tape of Savion, and I watched tape of Christian here from last year before he, obviously got the knee injury, and just wanted to kind of see, okay, where do the similarities line up? All right. And we'll kind of talk about how that falls into place. We're going to start with Deebo, though. Here we go. With Christian Watson recovering from a torn ACL, that's expected to keep him sidelined deep into the 25 season. The Green Bay Packers have a huge question mark at wide receiver. That injury leaves a massive void in the offense. But what if the answer is already on the roster? And what if the answer doesn't just replace a player, but evolves the entire offense? In the third round of the 25 draft, the Packers didn't just draft a wide receiver. They drafted a unicorn, a player with a skill set so unique he's drawing direct comparisons to one of the most dynamic weapons in the game, Deebo Samuel. Today, we're breaking down the tape to see exactly how Matt LaFleur can and will use Savion Williams in that hybrid role. This isn't just about plugging a hole. It's about creating mismatches, manufacturing touches, and building a more lethal, unpredictable offense around Jordan Love. We'll look at his raw power, his shocking agility, and how he can become the new favorite weapon in Green Bay. So keep in mind, when I was writing this article and putting this together, I just watched the tape. Okay, so when we're talking about film breakdown, we'll get to that here in a second toward the end of the show. The Deebo Samuel blueprint. So this kind of answers your question here, Tim. So what does the Deebo Samuel role actually mean? It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but it's more than just a receiver who can take a handoff. In Matt LaFleur's offense, an offense born from the Shanahan coaching tree, it's a philosophy. It's all about creating chaos for the defense before the snap. It's about using one guy to completely blur the lines between receiver and running back, forcing defenses into decisions where there's no right answer. Mainly in personnel matching and mismatching is what we're talking about here, guys. LaFleur's whole system is built on making every play look the same at the start. He loves pre-snap motion, top formations, a.k.a. nasty splits, and, of course, play action. A guy like Deebo lets you motion a receiver into the backfield, and suddenly he's a real threat to run the ball. Does the defense stick with a smaller cornerback on him, or do they swap in a bigger, maybe slower linebacker? No matter what they choose, they've just created a mismatch somewhere else. This offense craves players who don't have a fixed position. They're the chess pieces that unlock the entire board. And when you look at Savion Williams, it's like he was built in a lab to play that exact role for Matt LaFleur. Does that make sense, Tim, in terms of what we're talking about with Deebo, man? Because when you put him in the backfield and you came out 11 personnel, you put him in the backfield, and now the defense has to decide, do we put our nickel corner in there to cover him in the box, or do we let a backer slide over there to it? Next thing you know, they're running a post route out of the backfield, which we'll show on the tape here in a second, and they hit you for 6. But does that all kind of connect the dots there?
Yeah, makes perfect sense, right? Because you're making that defense have to respect, that player. And either way it goes, you have an opportunity to win the matchup, win the hat count, or win the play. And it's a down-to-down league, right? We talk about each rep, So I think it does. That comparison in that sense is absolutely spot on. And, it's the Deebo type, right? Tape doesn't lie. And I would agree with that. We talked about that a little bit, I believe last night or the night before when we were talking about, being able to be in a, quote unquote 12 personnel set without really having two tight ends on the field, because you can utilize a guy like Savion in that respect. So I would totally agree.
Definitely. All right. The college tape doesn't lie. This Deebo comparison isn't just wishful thinking based on Williams' size and speed. It's all over his TCU tape. This isn't a role we hope he can transition to. It's a role he's already played at an insanely high level. In 24, Savion Williams was one of the only two players in all of FBS football to have at least 6 rushing touchdowns and 6 receiving touchdowns. He put up 60 catches for 611 yards and 6 scores through the air, then added 51 carries for 322 yards and another 6 touchdowns on the ground. Those aren't just gadget play numbers. That's a legitimate dual threat weapon who was a core piece of both their passing and rushing attack. And TCU didn't just use him on a few jet sweeps. They lined him up in the backfield for direct snaps. They ran him right between the tackles. They trusted him in short yardage. He was, for all intents and purposes, their part-time running back who also just happened to be their leading receiver. That kind of experience is priceless. He isn't learning a new position. He's just bringing a proven skill set to a playbook that's practically built to maximize it. I'm not 100% sure he was the leading receiver at TCU because they had Jack Besh, and I want to say there was another receiver as well, but obviously putting up really, really good numbers down there at TCU as a receiver. So that's just kind of a little glimpse into some of the stats that he recorded while he was in college. Look at that shot right there, him leapfrogging. I think that's a Texas player, Texas Longhorn. Dude's just versatile as all get out, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll see in the next few weeks how he's looking at camp, right? Hopefully that shoulder issue is a non-issue going into his pro career. I know we saw him with the sleeve on during minicamp and things like that. So hopefully he's pretty much healthy as a rookie, and he could definitely be poised for an absolute breakout season as a rookie.
Now let's talk about the power component to his game. The first thing that just explodes off the screen when you watch Williams is the pure raw power. This is the foundation of the Deebo comparison. It's that ability to turn a simple 5-yard catch into a 15-yard soul-crushing gain. On a simple shallow cross, a staple of the Packers offense, he gets the ball quickly and has a DB squaring him up. For most receivers, that's a 5, maybe 6-yard gain, and that's it. But when you watch Williams, there's no dancing, no hesitation. He just lowers his shoulders and runs straight through the tackle, dragging him for another 10 yards. And this isn't a one-off play. His college film is full of these moments. He just consistently breaks arm tackles and makes 2 or 3 guys bring him down. That physical punishing style just wears a defense down. Cornerbacks who are used to tackling shifty receivers now have to line up against a 6'4", 222-pound battering ram all game. That toll adds up. What have we talked about with Jair Alexander, right? Imagine somebody like Jair who's had a history with the shoulder, a history with injuries, getting a little bit older. He's as quick as he's ever been. He can cover just about as good as he ever has. But boy, oh boy, he doesn't want to tackle a player that's 6'4", 222 pounds. I loved Jair when he was a Packer, but when we play the Baltimore Ravens, I would love to see Savion and him in space together on a little bubble screen. And let's watch Jair try to tackle this absolute monster. That would be awesome. By the fourth quarter, you start seeing bad angles and business decisions, and that's when those little 5-yard passes turn into game-breaking plays. It's no wonder Packers OC Adam Stenavich is already fired up, saying you can, quote, come up with a zillion different ways to use him. It all starts with what he does after the catch. Yak is the name of the game in the passing game for Savion, although there's a little bit of contested catch game there as well, Tim. What do you think about the power aspect of this game?
Yeah, I think it's so true. I mean, I don't care what your size and stature is as a corner in the NFL. I don't think any of these guys want to go heads up with a big body receiver, right? And you talk about Savion's athleticism. I mean, if you're a DB and you're going to try and shoot low and wrap up the ankle and make ankle tackles all day and not lower the boom, a guy like Savion Williams is going to make you look stupid. He's going to hurdle you. He's going to juke you. spin move, and he's out of there. Or he's just simply going to run right through your ankle tackle. So you got to play big boy football against a guy like that. So definitely a multifaceted threat for our offense, and I love it.
Yeah, Chris in the chat says Savion and Josh J. Talking about Josh Jacobs back touches against Ja with the shocked emoji. Love it, man. AFAM in the chat says, could he be used for the tush push? That's a great idea, AFAM. They caught on. I say they caught on, but it was 100% successful. We would motion Tucker Kraft over like he's motioning across the formation, jump under center real quick, take the snap, and sneak it, right? Now imagine keeping Tucker Kraft stabilized, right? Just, hey, you stay attached at the wire, flex, whatever you're doing. And now you bring somebody like Savion over, take the snap. He was a quarterback in high school. He was recruited partially as a quarterback coming out of high school. And, of course, he settled in at wide receiver and played some Wildcat reps down there at TCU as well. I love what you're saying there, Ethan. I think that's absolutely awesome, man.
And the fact that he might not even need a push, right? You could just run him in there and he'll just find his way into the end zone.
Yeah, very true. Film breakdown, the backfield threat. Let's talk about him being a running back now. Okay, all right, now for the most exciting part of his game, what he can do as a legitimate weapon out of the backfield. This is what takes him from being just a big physical receiver to a true game wrecker. TCU motion from out wide into the backfield right next to the quarterback. The defense is immediately pointing and yelling, totally confused. The linebacker that had him in coverage is now completely lost. The ball is snapped. It's a direct handoff, and Williams shows a surprising burst through the hole and the vision to find a cutback lane. This is the exact kind of stress Matt LaFleur wants to put on the defense. In 2024, Matt LaFleur used Jaden Reed in this role, but by season's end, he was pretty banged up with an ankle and a shoulder injury, forcing LaFleur to limit his touches in both the running game and the passing game. When Williams is in the backfield next to Josh Jacobs, what does a coordinator do? Treat it like a two-back set? If they do, that leaves one of Green Bay's other receivers in a one-on-one matchup. If they don't, they risk getting gashed by Williams on a simple run play. It also unlocks a whole new level of play action. Imagine Williams getting a fake handoff and then leaking out into the flat or for a pass. The linebacker has to respect the run, which leaves Williams wide open for an easy completion. This is exactly how teams like the 49ers and Rams manufacture easy yards for their quarterbacks. It's not always about complex routes. It's about creating the mismatch before the ball is even snapped. Now, does he not look good in a Packer helmet, man? Look at my guy right here. And again, wearing the shoulder harness. Again, very physical runner. He's had some shoulder injuries, so we got to make sure we monitor that as well. But does that make sense to him about taking some of the wear and tear off of Jaden Reed and allow Savion to absorb a little bit of that? Because, again, we're talking about replacing Christian Watson until November, right? So now you got a guy that can take a little more of that role away from Jaden Reed, and you could put Jaden Reed out in the Z when you're in your normal, 12 personnel. Yeah. If you just want to go with 12 personnel, Jaden Reed can play the Z. And then you can let Romeo Doubs and Matthew Golden fight it out for X. Now you got Savion who can take some of those reps.
Absolutely. We kind of touched on that last night, right? We were talking about Savion and Matthew Golden here. As rookies, how much do you want to put on their plate? How much do you want to ask, a talented, dynamic rookie receiver to do in your offense? I think the answer is what you just touched on. Maybe you free up Jaden Reed, who's established, who's been here, who, like we said, we need to get out of the return room and utilize him more as a dynamic receiver, and then maybe ask, a guy like Savion Williams to do some of these other things. And I think he can find success as a rookie too. And I've got a sneaking suspicion that I think both of our rookie wideouts are going to hit this year, and we're going to be in a pretty good position come week one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, the opportunity. This is how he fits in right now in Green Bay, okay? This isn't just a fun what-if for the future. This is about an immediate pressing need. Christian Watson's ACL injury was a huge blow, and his return timeline for 2025 is a major question mark. While the Packers did draft Matthew Golden in the first round, Golden is more of your traditional deep threat, a speedster expected to fill that vertical Z role and possibly at X. That leaves the hybrid manufactured touch role, the exact role Watson was asked to do lining up in the wing, completely up for grabs. Savion Williams doesn't have to wait in line. He walks into a situation where the coaches need a player with his exact skill set from day one. He's the perfect puzzle piece to fill that specific void. And again, right here's a good visualization. When we talk about him playing wing, notice the top image, Christian Watson playing the wing. This was from last year, guys. This was last year's tape, okay? Matter of fact, I think this was week 1 right here in Brazil. So you see Christian Watson in the wing, right? Now, Look at Savion down here in the wing. Does that look familiar? Right. So you can utilize him right out of the gate. Any of these formations that you wanted to use Christian Watson in the wing set, you can go ahead and put Savion there. That's something that you don't want Jaden Reed in because he's not big enough to chip if you need him to, or get in there and dig out a backer if you decide to check to a run. That's where I think Savion is very, very valuable, right? Expect to see him on the field right away in special packages. LaFleur will likely script a handful of plays for him every single game just to get the ball in his hands fast. We're talking jet sweeps, bubble screens, and lining up in the backfield or as a wing back, especially in the red zone on short yardage downs. He brings a physical element that perfectly complements the speed of Golden and the route running of Jaden Reed. And Tim, when you look at the PFF grades here, man, he's one of these players that was ascending coming into the league, right? Starting in 2020, a 58. Then he goes to a 60, falls back to a 58. Then in 2023, a 72. And then his final year in college, he scored his highest grade, according to PFF, at a 78.9. And again, the receiving grade, pretty damn good, 70.2. But look at the running grade, 90.5 elite running game. Guys, this isn't just hype. And again, as a rookie coming in, someone who's going to play the F, you're like, hey, man, he's got to learn the choice routes. There's going to be a big learning curve there, right? But if they script a handful of packages like we're talking about, what he did best in college, he's ready to do. You just take the freaking hand off him. That's all you do, right? So that's where I'm probably most excited about him helping fill that void, is playing that wing back and then getting him some touches out of the backfield. And here's the thing. We're not saying you shelf Josh Jacobs. You guys know we're the biggest Josh Jacobs fans on the face of the planet. But how do you keep Josh Jacobs healthy? What if you go up by 10 points in a game? Throw Savion back there a little bit. Get him some touches. You've still got Marshawn Lloyd, who's going to get his first significant carries this year if he stays healthy. You got Emmanuel Wilson, who's arguably one of the best backup running backs in the league. The running game is going to be stout this year, Tim. We might just see more 12 personnel than we did last year.
I would agree. And I think situationally, if offensively we're in a situation where we do want to throw that swing pass, or we want to hit a quick screen, or a flare to a running back or something out of the backfield, maybe you're right. Give Josh Jacobs a play off. Give Emmanuel Wilson or Marshawn Lloyd a play off and run that to Savion Williams and let him create with blockers in front of him. Can you imagine him catching a pass in the flat and having Tuck Norris out there blocking downfield in front of him? I mean, this is going to be incredible. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, 90.5 run grade for a wide receiver is absolutely insane. And I know it's a college grade. We haven't seen him against NFL talent yet, but I fully expect that, the dynamic portions of his game are just going to continue to get better as he develops, for sure.
Yeah. Coach Lynn says, yep, Wilson is legit. We might see more 21 personnel this year.
Ooh.
Could be the case.
Hey, and a great point by Coach, right? Because you certainly could put two running backs out there and one tight end, and one of your running backs is Savion Williams.
I'll take it a step further, Tim. Imagine this set. Imagine you coming out in your pony package, right? You coming out in your gun pony, and you break the huddle quick with 28 seconds on the play clock. You got plenty of time to make this happen. Imagine you come out in your pony package, double sidecar, and it's Josh Jacobs, and it's, let's say, Marshawn Lloyd in the backfield. Well, they read 21 personnel, okay? So they're in their base 4-3 or their base 34. And then as you go to line up in the pony, before you even get set, they go out wide and you're in an empty set, right? Yeah. So now, okay, everybody disperses. They cover the empty. And then you bring Savion into the backfield. What do? Do they bring a linebacker in to help play against the run? Or
right.
Do
they buzz the safety down?
If they're in man coverage, do they keep the linebackers out wide on the running backs and they bring a nickel back or a cornerback into the box? And now you hand the ball to Savion and run right through that cat's face. There's a number of different things you can do here, man. Really, really cool.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, if we're talking about Savion Williams out of the backfield, he can also stop and hum that tater about 40, 50 yards down the field in a pinch if you need him to, right?
No doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. Now let's talk about the weaknesses here, okay? Listen, there's no perfect prospect, right? It's just, outside of 3 or 4 every draft, there's really that, and some of those end up being busts as well. But let's kind of slow the hype a little bit, and let's talk about the realistic expectations, right? All right, let's be real. Savion Williams isn't a perfect prospect. There's a reason a guy with his traits was available in the third round, and that's because his game needs some polish. Now, I will say Goody had a second-round grade on him. So, yes, he fell to the third round, and I'm a firm believer that your true value is if he was truly a second-round pick, someone would have taken him in the second round, right? But the fact that Goody had a second-round grade on him, that's the same exact grade that he had. Actually, Christian Watson had a first-round grade, from what I understand. Jaden Reed had a first-round grade on him, too, from Goody. But second, obviously, right there in the ballpark. So definitely something to kind of take into consideration there. There's a guy with traits was available in the third round, and that's because his game needs some polish. The biggest knock from scouts is his route running. He's not yet a technician who's going to create clean separation on a full NFL route tree. He tends to rely on his massive frame and physicality to win rather than pure technique. Some scouts also pointed out his two inconsistent hands at times in college. But here's why that's not a deal breaker, especially not for the role he'll play this year. The Packers didn't draft him to be Devontae Adams on day one. They drafted him to be a weapon. His job at first won't be to win on a 15-yard comeback route. It will be to catch a screen and run someone over or take a handoff and get a tough 4 yards. He will also be asked to use his massive 6'4", 222 frame to block out of the wingback position the same way Watson did from time to time. This will allow LaFleur to use his entire playbook while Watson recovers. I repeat, you can still use those snaps, those plays, those specific formations that otherwise you would have had to taken out because Watson's hurt, right? You can plug Savion into that role right there and really key in on that on training camp, Tim. That's what you need to be looking for at training camp when you're over there this year. See if you ever see Savion in that wingback position, because I'm telling you, man, I think there'll be something brewing there. This will allow LaFleur to use his entire playbook while Watson recovers. Williams for the wingback role and Golden for the speed Z. So Golden out at speed Z and Savion in the wingback, you have Christian Watson still on your roster, in your lineup. Now, listen, I'm not saying that both of those guys together are better than Watson or even as good as Watson, but it allows you to continue to press into your playbook while Watson recovers. And if he comes back in October, imagine getting him back at the end of October, early November. It's game on, man.
We're not replacing Scoot. You don't replace a guy like that. What you do is hope to fill the void until he can return, right? And then, like you said, imagine the return, and then you've got these dynamic playmakers that, Matt's got this whole, section of his playbook that he can open up now because you've got Christian Watson back in the fold, plus your dynamic rookie receiver. So it's just important to remember that, you're not going to replace a guy. You're just hoping to, fill that void, get that production. Like you said, a Williams and a Golden will equal hopefully that production that you miss with Scoot being out for sure.
Yeah. Those are the things he's already proven he can do at a high level. Now, how much he develops the route running and improves on the drops will determine his ultimate ceiling. If he can become a more polished receiver, he has a legitimate number one wideout potential. But his floor as a versatile physical mismatch player is already incredibly high and feels a massive need for this offense. All right, in conclusion, so is Savion Williams really the next Deebo Samuel? It's a bold comparison, but the blueprint is there. He has the same rare blend of receiving and rushing ability. He has that physical tackle-breaking run style, and most importantly, he lands in the perfect offense with a coach who knows exactly how to use a weapon like him. With Christian Watson's sideline, the door is wide open for Williams to do more than just contribute. He could become a key part of the Packers' game plan right away. He's the wild card, the mismatch nightmare that's going to keep defensive coordinators guessing. While the first-round pick, Matthew Golden, might get the early headlines, don't be shocked if it's the third-round rookie, number 83, who makes the most unique and immediate impact. The Packers didn't just draft another receiver. They drafted a strategic weapon. They drafted an identity. Get ready to see Savion Williams making plays all over the field because the Deebo experiment in Green Bay is officially about to begin. So you guys, if this is your first time tuning in here at PTA, what do you think? Can Savion be that Deebo-level player for the Packers? More importantly, can he help fill half of that role that Christian Watson is leaving behind as he's rehabbing that ACL? Just drop your thoughts in the comments, and appreciate you swinging by here to the channel. Make sure you hit subscribe on your way out. Tim, anything else on the Savion Williams article, man?
No, I think that was great, man. Covered a lot of bases. And, I think we got to give props to Deebo Samuel, right? Kind of perfected that role in the modern NFL. And I don't know if you saw any tape on him recently. He looks a wee bit out of shape right now and a little past his prime. But you can't deny the impact that he had on football in his prime. And,
no doubt.
That role in any offense makes you that much better. So I think it's a great point. Savion Williams is really going to be a treat in a Matt LaFleur offense for sure.
Yeah. Deebo's really, really close to eating himself out of the league.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite players of all time, Eddie Lacy.
Yep.
And it sounds silly, but that's a hard thing to keep under control, man. I make a joke all the time. Food's the only reason I don't do drugs. You know what I mean? Food is my drugs. I come from a long line of hard partiers in my family lineage all the way. I'm talking about several generations. I'm just telling you right now, man, anybody who eats their way out of the league, I relate. That would be this knucklehead right here. I'd be running around with 3 chins talking about, yeah, I played in the NFL for a half a season. So there you go.
Cheese curds and my stomach hurts all the time, but I do eat them though.
All right, man. I love it. Chris the Casual, man. I love Eddie Lacy. He loves Chinese food. Hey, that cracked me up when they asked. Y'all remember when they asked him that? And he's like, yeah, I love Chinese food. Like, sorry, just being honest.
Got that MSG cracking off for sure.
Exactly. All right, man. Let's do it.